Friends, our story of the week from children is concerned with a little girl who moved from LaGrange, Illinois to Guthrie City Center, Iowa. And it seems that in the course of the moving, she lost her Girl Scout cap, her little brownie cap. And the family searched through the garrets and the closets and the boxes and were unable to find it. And one night, the little girl, looking at television, saw me, and she ran to her mother, and she says, "Mommy, I found my cap. Bishop Sheen has it." When the mother wrote and told me this, I autographed a Zucchetto, a yarmulke. I autographed the yarmulke to her and sent it to her, but I want to tell you that's the only one that I will send, regardless of who loses his or her hat. We promised tonight to talk about work. I probably could talk much better on overwork. You remember what Jerome K. Jerome said about work? He said, "It positively fascinates me. I could sit and look at it all day." Some people work like a horse all day and then they want to hit the hay at night. We will tell you first of all about the nature of work, and then what is happening to it today, what the Russians think about it, finally how it can be less boring. First of all, the nature of work. An animal works. For example, we speak of working like a beaver or busy as a bee. Now, what is the difference between the work of an animal and the work of a man? And what is the same in both? First of all, they are alike in the fact that there is a result produced. For example, a dam in the case of a beaver, chair in the case of a man. But there is this difference. In man, there is an intention. Man has a reason and a will. He's made to the image of God. And he leaves the impress of his work on what he does. An animal operates only by instinct, not by freedom and reason. For example, in the building of a cathedral, a stone is cut, that is the result produced. The intention, the building of an edifice to honor and glorify God. Piece of art. Take, for example, the marvelous statue of Moses, done by Michelangelo. Result produced, a statue. The intention to glorify the great Hebraic lawgiver. Incidentally, when he finished that statue, he felt that it was so perfect that he took his chisel and he struck the base of it, saying, "Speak." A farmer produces results, namely his crops. His intention is to intensify his knowledge of farming, to help him live virtuously, and also to aid the common good. Now we come to industrial work. There's a tremendous amount of work that is done in this world that is boring. It is nothing but dull, dreadful repetition. For example, the screwing in of a bulb on a conveyor belt as a machine passes by. This routine is deadening. Years after year, identically the same detail is fulfilled. The intention, the development of personality, the production of social good is almost lost. So that men feel, well, I just work in order to live, that's all, not to perfect myself. They're putting, for example, a nut on a bolt that goes into the spring, that goes into the chassis, that goes into the auto. And when it's finished, it's pretty hard for them to see just what they've done. They say, well, what good does it do? Like the poor chickens, they lay the eggs, and then the eggs are taken away to put in an incubator. Terrific specialization of work. Like the little gosling that I knew. Well, I'm going to show you a picture of this little gosling. It seems as if a New York State trooper found this egg, and he brought it to the Redemptorists here in New York, and one of the Redemptorist fathers made a homemade incubator and hatched out a gosling. Now, a peculiar thing about a gosling is that he will very often attach himself to the very first thing that he sees when he comes out of the egg. So the first thing they saw were just simply a number of Redemptorists, a number of priests. So from that time on, the gosling would associate only with men. I went up there to their house to make a retreat. I would go out walking in the afternoon. Little Louis, the gosling, would come after me. I will show you a picture of little Louis. See, he has on the cincture? They dressed him up exactly like a bishop. And one afternoon, I took Louis down with the geese. Louis wouldn't associate with the geese. He didn't know geese. And so it is with modern work. Such tremendous specialization that today two results follow. First of all, work is boring. I mean, that kind of work. And the reason that kind of work is boring is simply because man was made to leave the impress of his character on matter. He was to impress nature in some particular way, just as a man loves to whittle. Take clay and mold it. Raising of children. He has an image in himself, the image of God, and he wants to put his own image in matter. But when he does the same thing over and over again, he's unable to do it. The result is, therefore, that there is a conflict, as you see, between nature, which wishes to do something that is truly individual, and our present mechanical civilization, which does nothing but standardize. And the result is that labor is a drudge and a bore. No wonder people are sick and tired of it. Even leisure is. In the sense that it's mechanized, and 2,000 or 3,000 people will sit in a theater and look at exactly the same thing and enjoy the same emotions. Not only is this kind of labor boring, but there's also another effect, and that is that because man cannot see what he is doing, because he cannot see a purpose, because he cannot see how his personality is perfected by his work, he becomes subject to the economic. In other words, today in the economic order, man is for production. That is not good. That is not sound. Man is not for production. Production is for man. So we've come to believe that everything must be subordinated to the economic. Have 11 children, enough to buy only 10 hats, cut off the head of the 11th child. The economic is primary. Man becomes subordinate to economic conditions. Coffee is thrown into the ocean. Milk spilled. Grain stored. Bananas thrown into the sea. And 2/3 of the people of the world are going to bed hungry every night. And why? Simply because man has been made a slave of the economic, and production has come first, not the human. And incidentally, it is this that has bred the revolutionary spirit in the economic order among the workers. It's much more than a tension between capital and labor. Far deeper than that, and few have seen it. And if man revolts, it is simply because he knows that he has a destiny, that he was not made for the economic and for production, that production and the economic were made for him. He's the noblest thing on earth. Not a price, not a prophet, not some anonymous organization to which he belongs. And the logic of all of this is Russia. Here, of course, with our mechanized civilization, man is economically free. Not as economically free as he should be. He's free to sell his labor. He's politically free. But notice the logic of communism. Communism comes along and says, let man live for work alone. Remember, we had, in discussion of work, two ideas. One, the result which was produced, and the other, the development of human personality, man's intention and image going into work. The communists have said, let us destroy personality. There's no God. There's no divine image in man. There's no spirit. There's no soul. There's only work. Produce, produce, produce. It's well to realize that hidden, deep in the modern world, as men lose a belief in God, is a readiness to surrender political and economic freedom for bread or for what is called security. Dostoevsky, in the last century, saw this coming in Russia. And in one of his great works, Brothers Karamazov, he pictures the devil coming back and tempting Christ again. The regime of communism is on the face of the earth. And the devil speaks to Christ about turning stones into bread, which our blessed Lord refused to do to win the mob. And Satan then describes how under his regime they will get millions to follow them, to follow a dictator because they give bread. And how they will even mechanize their leisure. And finally, how they will persecute. The devil now speaks to Christ, who in this book of Dostoevsky never answers the temptation. We shall persuade them, says the devil, that they will only become free when they renounce their freedom to us and submit to us. Turn those stones into bread, and mankind will run after thee, Christ, like a flock of sheep, grateful and obedient, though forever trembling, lest thou withdraw thy hand and deny them their bread. Dost thou not know, O Christ, that the ages will pass, and humanity will proclaim by the lips of their sages that there is no crime, there is no sin, there is only hunger. How those days are on us now. In the end, they will lay their freedom at our feet and say to us, make us slaves, but feed us. In their leisure hours, we shall make their life like a child's game, with children's songs and innocent dances. We shall even allow them their sin, and they will love us like children because we allow them their sin. We shall allow them or forbid them to live with their wives and their mistresses, to have or not to have children, according to whether they have been obedient or disobedient to us, and they will submit to us. What I say to thee, O Christ, will come to pass. And our dominion will be built up over the world. I repeat, tomorrow thou, Christ, shalt see that obedient flock who at a sign from me will hasten to heap up hot cinders about the pile on which I shall burn thee for coming to hinder us. For if anyone has ever deserved our fires, it is thou. Tomorrow I shall burn thee. Dixie, I have spoken. That's the logic of work without a soul. The logic of the primacy of the economic and the subservience of the human. What's the answer? Destroy the machine? Our industrial civilization? Certainly not. These things are blessings. We must keep them and preserve them. Much of our happiness would be lost to this world if we did away with all of our technological progress. What then is the answer? The answer is twofold. One economic and the other spiritual. The economic answer is to begin to dignify the worker. How can he be dignified? By restoring his responsibility. By making him feel that he's contributing to something that is his own. By giving him a sense of responsibility. And that will be done by giving the workers some share in either the profits or management or ownership of industry. Not all the profits. Capital must have its just share. Let the government give up some of the excess profit taxes so they will not be spent through bureaucracies. And let some of that be given to those who help produce a social good and our social wealth. Then both shall have a share. And both shall be dignified. Today in our economic order, one is always asked, are you for capital? Are you for labor? Why be asked that question whether we are for capital or labor? Capital and labor are classes, and no class is always right. We have suffered a great deal in the past from capital, and we could suffer a great deal from labor. And instead of being for either capital or labor, we be for both. Just like asking which is the more important, the right or the left leg of a man. Both. Let them work together, producing the common good and social wealth. Then man will have a sense of dignity, and let that share which is given to him not be readily negotiable, so that he will always have a sense of responsibility in the place where he works. Then the other way to sanctify work and to save it from being a drudgery is to do it with the divine intention. We have a mind. We can do different things for different reasons, like dropping money in a cup just to be seen, giving it simply because we see Christ in the poor. There isn't any work in the world that cannot be sanctified. Everything. Raising a sound boom, making a table, sweeping floors, threading needles, working at the routine machines, an airplane, and automobile factories, all of these can be sanctified and made a prayer, provided they are offered up with a divine intent. Whether you eat or drink or whatsoever you do, do it in the name of the God who made you. We all have to do work that is unpleasant, but it becomes pleasant when we love someone. Do it out of love. We do it for the love of God. And then we'll understand those who would like to have a Christ proclaimed as the patron of the workers, that this is not just the answer. And those who say that Christ, the worker, is the friend of the laborer, quite forgets that the capital ought to have a friend too. And our blessed Lord was not just a carpenter. He was not just a poor man. Our blessed Lord was a rich man who became poor. For being rich, he became poor for our sakes. Our blessed Lord was, as it were, a capitalist who became a laborer. And let us not forget that this worker who fixed the flat roofs of Nazarene homes was also the one from whose fingertips there tumbled planets and worlds. Let us not forget that he who labored in a carpenter shop was also the very one who carpentered the universe itself. And therefore he is the bond that will bring capital and labor together and restore the dignity of man, for he is the only one in the world of whom both capital and labor can say, he came from our ranks. He is one of our own. No work is ever degrading. It is only workmanship that can be degrading. Every work in the world is noble if it is done out of love for God. Bye now. God love you.